Hi, I'm Dustin Abbott, and I'm here today to give you my first look at the new Tamron 17-28mm F2.8 Di3, which means it's for mirrorless, and it has their RXD focus motor, which is, similar to linear focus motors from a variety of different manufacturers. Now, the A046, as it's internally coded by Tamron, of course, is the successor to the wildly popular 28-75mm F2.8 RXD lens. It was released in 2018, and after its release, that became the best-selling lens in the world, which is quite an accomplishment for a third-party lens. But it really struck a great balance between, performance, price, weight, just, kind of general usability, and became a very popular alternative, obviously, to Sony's 24-70mm f2.8 G Master lens. Tamron, of course, is hoping that you'll feel the same about the 17-28mm as an alternative to the 16-35mm f2.8 G Master lens. Now, obviously, that lens has a wider focal range, zoom range, than what the Tamron does. But once again, Tamron has prioritized, maybe a slightly different focal length, in this case, a more compact zoom range, in order to be able to provide what they consider to be a balanced approach. And obviously it paid off for them the first time around. This is a lens that is even more compact than the 28-75mm. It's lighter, and it has a very, very reasonable front filter thread of 67mm, which means it's unlike, say, their 15-30mm f2.8 for DSLRs. This is an easy lens to use with filters, and of course shares the same front filter size with the 28-75mm, and of course fits right in there alongside that focal length as a complementary focal length that now gives you coverage all the way from 17 to 75mm at a constant f2.8 aperture. I suspect that we will see a third lens in the series at some point in the next year that will cover the telephoto end of the range, and whether it will run from 75 to 200mm or traditional 70 to 200mm, I don't know, but of course I'm looking forward to a lens like that as well. So let's take a closer look at the new 17 to 28mm f2.8 RXD lens. So as you can see, it strongly resembles the 28 to 75mm, but it is certainly a little bit shorter, and so it gives it a little bit different of a lens profile due to that shorter length. So just to give you a quick visual comparison, the 28 to 75mm is 117.8mm in length, or 4.6 inches, whereas the 17 to 28mm is 99mm, or 3.9 inches. And so, not quite a full inch shorter, but definitely considerably shorter there. Now, both of them have an identical diameter of either 73mm or 2.87 inches. And so while one looks a little squatter than the other because it's shorter, they're actually the same diameter. And in fact, both of them share a 67mm front filter thread. In terms of the weight, there is definitely some difference. 550 grams for the 28 to 75mm, 420 grams or 14.82 ounces for the new lens. So, a little bit more compact all around. Now, I noted that there's a 67mm front filter thread, and technically this is an internally zooming lens, but as you can see, there is some zoom action of the inner barrel moving in and out as a part of that zooming process, with it most thoroughly retracted at 28mm and closest to the front at 17mm. Now, this is a fully weather-sealed lens. It's got a gasket here at the rear mount. It's got some internal seals, and it's got a fluorine coating on this front element. However, the fact that there is some travel here, I think that some of you might feel more comfortable with putting a front protection filter on there just to make sure that it's sealed. I'm assuming there are internal seals to help with that, because that's kind of an obvious vulnerability. But anyway, just for your peace of mind, you may want to do that. Now, as far as the actual lens construction here, this is a mix of metals and engineered plastics, and it feels good and sturdy in the hand, but at the same time, it's not like a metal Zeiss beast here. Now, because this is an internally zooming lens, the focus, or the zoom action, I should say, is really nice and smooth. It's not a big zoom range, and so it's not necessarily a big zoom travel. There is a constant f2.8 maximum aperture across that zoom range. Now, this is the only other thing here on the barrel is the focus ring, manual focus ring, which as you can see can just turn freely because this is focused by wire. It's not connected to any kind of actual elements. There's no direct mechanical coupling. So to utilize the focus ring, you either need to be in DMF mode, or you can switch into manual focus mode. And if you do so, now you will get two things here on your Sony body. You will first of all get the active focus point magnified. You will also then get a distance window here. Now, in terms of the action, you can make major focus changes quick, or if you slow down, it will slow down accordingly and it will refine that process. And so the damping is actually fairly good here. Not terrible to use for manual focus, but obviously, I mean, it's different than a direct mechanical coupling there when it comes to that. Now, you can probably tell from what's magnified here that the lens can focus down closely. And in that aspect, it kind of shares another similar, somewhat quirky design to the 28-75. And that is that there are two different minimum focus distances, MFDs, one for the wide range, one for the telephoto range. And like the 28-75, you can actually focus closer at the wide angle than you can at the telephoto end. So here at the wide end, you can actually focus down to 19 centimeters or 7.5 inches. And there you have a magnification figure of 0.1923 times. And so not quite, 0.20 times, but, a pretty strong maximum magnification figure there that compares well to other wide angle lenses. The 28mm lenses, and by the way, if you're looking at that kind of distance, 7.5 inches is from this point here. And so you're talking about a distance of somewhere here. So you can focus down really, really closely at 17mm and get a unique point of view there. At 28mm, the minimum focus distance is now 0.26 meters, 26 centimeters, or 10.2 inches. And now you have a 1:6 ratio, magnification ratio, which works out to right under 0.17 time. So, I mean, also useful as well, but you get your higher magnification actually at the wide end, which is similar to the 28-75mm. It gives you some different kind of storytelling opportunities, and so it's kind of an interesting aspect of that. Now, in terms of this physical size, for a wide-angle zoom, it's certainly compact. Just to give you an idea of a comparison, this is actually a prime lens and a manual everything prime lens from Laowa for Sony, the 15mm f2. It's a very nicely built, competent lens. Many people are going to prefer the autofocusing zoom lens, as an alternative to that. Now, we'll be breaking down the actual optical performance in a future episode, but let me just note a couple of things in terms of our optical formula here. This is 13 elements and 11 groups. It has 9 rounded aperture blades, so it retains a fairly circular shape when it is stopped down. And it comes to market priced at $899 US, which is basically the same as what the 28-75 came. Now, of course, when you're looking at the comparative G Master lens, this is going to be a huge bargain. That's the 16-35mm f2.8. And already this is a top-selling lens at B&H Photo and back-ordered because of high demand. And a lot of that is built upon the reputation of the 28-75, which was the best-selling lens in the world since its release. And so Tamron obviously has a winning formula in these new, fast zoom lenses for Sony FE, including their RXD, which is basically linear motor focus, which is fast and quiet. And so far, if we go from one to the other, and I'll be quiet so you can hear. you can hear that there's nothing to hear, essentially. It is very, very quiet in focus, and that's true both for stills and for video. The only, so far, focus observation that I've seen is that in really, really low light conditions, you know, basically dusk, I found that the lens didn't want to focus in a few scenarios where I felt like on a Canon, you know, mount with, you know, greater sensitivity maybe, and, you know, a Canon lens, I might have been able to focus in those situations. But one thing that Tamron demonstrated with the 28-75 is that there was actually more focus quirks than that with the 28-75 originally. They quickly solved all those via firmware, and so I'm pretty confident that the 17-28mm is going to prove to also be very competent when it comes to focus, because obviously Tamron knows how to do this at this point. All in all, a lot of good things to point to. No real surprises here. So as you can see, you know, basically things are as expected in terms of the build. It is, you know, it's not the highest grade, most superbly built lens, but once again, Tamron has struck, you know, looking for balance. So a balance between the size and the weight and the general construction. And so you've got all the basic ingredients there. You've got weather sealing. You've got a, you know, hopefully sturdy body, but one that looks good, a mix of engineered plastics and some lightweight aluminum alloys, similar to the 28-75mm. And so that's proven to be a winning formula for Tamron in the past, and we'll find out if the 17-28mm will do the same. So stay tuned, and I'll be following this up with a look at the overall image quality. We'll take a look also at the autofocus motor in a little bit more detail and see how autofocus performs. So some good things to look forward to as we move ahead in our review series on the 17-28mm f2.8 RXD lens. In the meantime, if you look in the description down below, I do have my image gallery going with lots of photos there, including, yes, some astro photos, and we will be covering that as a part of our review cycle. Beyond that, there's also buying links if you'd like to purchase one for yourself. And by the way, if you are interested in the lens, getting a pre-order in is wise, because like the 28-75mm, this is going to be a very popular, it's already shown as a top seller on B&H, and so it's back ordered in a lot of different places. And so if you want one, getting your pre-order in sooner rather than later is a smart idea. There's also buying links there if you'd like to follow me on social media, including now on Instagram, or you can become a patron and get advanced screenings of upcoming content. Beyond that, of course, if you haven't already, please click that subscribe button right here on YouTube. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.